MTN Sports, this is Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
Welcome into Bobcat Insider. I'm Ashley Washburn alongside Keaton Gillogly for our last Bobcat Insider, which means March is upon us. We've got the Big Sky tournament starting later this week, but the men coming off a huge win in Cheney, first one since 2011. But one of the best things about this win is Eastern Washington already locked up the 1 seed. Montana State already locked up the 2 seed. It didn't matter what the outcome was, but that was one of the best games I've seen this Big Sky play.
No doubt. It was so entertaining. And Eastern Washington, look, there's a reason that they're the regular season Big Sky champs. And they play such an entertaining brand of basketball. But the Bobcats were right there, and they showed up. And I know they gave up 49 points in that second half, but in that first half, they kept Eastern Washington under 30 points. The defense in that first half was really, really impressive, and it'll be really interesting to see how this carries over into the Big Sky Conference tournament.
It's got to get you excited for March. I mean, anything can happen in March. Anything can happen in Big Sky play. But I got to take us back to last week, because one of the things we talked about was Jabril's got to kind of figure it out. We need more from Jabril. I think he figured it out in these 3 games in 5 days.
No doubt. He's been an absolute menace this week, and he had a great game against Portland State, getting back on track. He showed up in senior day with a 20-point double-double, and then he had a couple of the biggest plays in this game at Eastern Washington. He put the center for Eastern Washington, Casey Jones, on an absolute poster late in this game, diving down on the hardwood. He was doing everything in this contest, and Montana State's going to go as far as their senior Jabril Bello can play and carry them, and with the way he's playing right now, he can carry them pretty far.
And that's the performance you want to see from seniors at this time of the year. But let's talk about the guard play real quick. At the beginning of this season, you had 2 new people, Robert Ford, Darius Brown. Didn't know really much about them other than that they made some impact on their previous schools, but didn't know how they were going to fit in at Montana State. Well, you take a look at Eastern Washington. I think both of them have kind of found their place, but I was really impressed with Robert Ford. 6 foot. Don't know if he's actually 6 foot, but to pull up a double-double the way he did was just huge.
Yeah, he's been awesome. And it was one of those things where, you're coming off a conference championship, you're coming off an NCAA tournament, but you lost a lot at the guard position. And so the whole question coming into this year, we knew they were going to have Jabril Bello and Great Osibor, but what would the guard play be? And you have to have great guard play in order to go deep in March. And Darius Brown and Robert Ford have been so impressive. They're 2 of the more impactful players on this team. Darius Brown got going first. Robert Ford got going second over the course of the year, and they both shined brightly in this win at Eastern Washington, which is what we're talking about next, coming up after this timeout when head coach Danny Sprinkle joins us on the Bobcat Insider.
Welcome back to Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
We're back on the Bobcat Insider. I'm Keaton Gillogly alongside head coach Danny Sprinkle on our final Bobcat Insider of the year. And all right, Coach, let's talk about a busy weekend. Let's start with Senior Day on Saturday. Jabril Bello, Caleb Fuller getting honored. What a nice night, what a special night, and really fun to see both of those guys really play well in that game.
It was. They got us off to a great start. Obviously Caleb's only been here for 9 months, but he's made a tremendous impact on our team and our community and our university. He's a great kid. And obviously Jabril, what he's done the last 4 years, not only one of the most accomplished Bobcats, but one of the most accomplished players in the Big Sky. And so we're going to miss number 13, and, it's been great having him, but we still got some work to do with him the next 3 days, hopefully in Boise, the next 3 games in Boise. And but you can't replace Jabril Bello.
No. Well, give us a feel for what his legacy here is. He's the all-time leading shot blocker, top 10 in points scored, top 5 in rebounds. He helped turn this program around with you over these last 4 years, particularly these last 2 seasons. So give us an idea. What is his legacy in the blue and gold? Yeah,
his legacy to me is more just the person he is, the teammate that he is. And, you don't get guys like him very often. He's one of the most unselfish superstars you can ever imagine. But he's all about the team. He's committed to winning. He does all the little stuff that help you win. Everybody gets enamored with his dunks and his block shots, but, even just watching the Eastern film on the flight, he's the one diving on the loose floor and getting a jump ball when we needed it. And so, those little things that impact winning, that's what, I think his legacy will be.
No doubt. It looks like he's starting to peak as we get ready for the Big Sky tournament. And for Montana State, a 3-0 week with the 91-point outburst against Portland State. A nice defensive battle again, of course, against Sac State. And then this last Monday game against Eastern Washington. Yeah. And first of all, this was a game that they wanted. And I know the seeds were all locked up, but it was their senior day. It was one of their largest crowds of the year. And you ended their 16-game winning streak on that Reese court. That was a heck of an atmosphere.
It was awesome. That place got loud. Like our players were saying, that was the loudest environment we played in. Probably other than Grand Canyon. And when they started making their run in the second half and making some of those crazy threes, that place was rocking. And I was proud of how our guys held their composure and they came down, executed, and we made some huge plays. Everybody, Darius, Robert, Raekwon, Jabril, everybody. And that's what good teams do.
Well, you mentioned Robert Ford. He was really one of the stars in this ball game. He had a double-double. And look, he's not a big dude. He's listed at 6 feet, but all of a sudden you see a bunch of bodies
kind of 6 feet. I know that.
He's all 6 feet. You got a couple of big bodies all around the rim, and all of a sudden he just jumps up above everybody else.
Yep.
Tell me about what he can do on the glass. For him to have 11 boards in that game, like what does he do? How is he such a great rebounder?
He's just got a knack. He's got a knack for where the ball's going to bounce off the rim, and he attacks it, and he is small enough too to where sometimes when the ball's coming down, he comes up and strips the big guys. And so he had some huge plays. He had some the 2 threes he hit were big, but his effort plays were huge, and obviously it culminated with the big offensive rebound at the end, which sealed the game.
And then he was able to knock down those free throws and get a big win there, snapping at what was a 10-game losing streak for Montana State in Cheney. And, again, we mentioned that the seeds were locked up. They had the outright championship. But was there any thought of load management or resting your players for this game?
No, never. And, our program's not built like that. And I don't care. As I mentioned last night, as long as we're wearing Montana State across our chest and we put that jersey on, we're going to come out, we're going to fight, and we're going to compete to win. And, that's what we start in the summer with our workouts, and it's not going to stop. I don't care if we play 10 days in a row, we're going to play.
Well, hopefully you get a chance to play 3 games in 4 days coming up. The Big Sky Conference Tournament is due up next. Montana State will start on Sunday night, 8 p.m. for the tip-off. And here we go, Big Sky Tournament championship time, and a little bit of a different format here. So your quarterfinals will start on Sunday. If you get the win, you get an off day Monday, and then Tuesday and Wednesday. How do you like this new format?
Yeah, I think it's good. We'll find out. They did it to try and protect the top seeds. And, luckily we're one of the top seeds, and so hopefully it works out. I'll let you know on Wednesday night if I like it or not.
What's the schedule coming up here? So obviously we got to travel out to Boise, and you get a chance to play the winner of the 7-8 game in that first quarterfinal game on Sunday. So what's the schedule coming up, and how do you kind of just shift your mindset for championship time?
Yeah, obviously, giving the guys today off, and probably we're not going to do much tomorrow. We may, we'll get some lifting in, we'll get a bunch of shooting and conditioning, but they kind of need to get away. They got to take care of their academics the next 2 days, and we'll take off on Friday morning and get there Friday, and obviously get ready to rock and roll at 8 o'clock on Sunday.
Yep. So that's what we got coming up there. And finally, our last show, the regular season is over. Yep. 22 wins overall with a really difficult non-conference schedule. 15 Big Sky wins. Yep. You get the bye into the quarterfinals. What a year. Give us some impressions of just kind of the ups and downs to get to this point at the end of your 4th year here.
Yeah, we played a tremendous schedule, and I think a lot of those games early helped us in league, whether it was from an atmosphere standpoint or a physicality standpoint, playing Middle Tennessee, playing Arizona, and teams like that, Oregon. And, we saw a ton of different styles, which you see in this league, and so it prepared us. It seems like we've been on the road since November, which we have, but I think it all works towards this weekend, and I think our guys are built for this. And, 15 conference wins in this league is tremendous. As hard as the travel is in this league, I'm really proud of our guys. And they've had a bullseye on them, since last year's team. And a lot of the guys weren't on that team. But they've accepted that role, and they knew when they signed up and they put that Montana State jersey on that, they're going to have a bullseye on them, and they've responded.
Well, you've made a lot of Bobcat country very, very proud, and now it's time to go get some dancing shoes on and get into tournament time.
Exactly.
All right, we'll take a break. When we get back, we'll be rejoined by Ashley Washburn on Bobcat Insider.
Welcome back to Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
We're back on the Bobcat Insider. I'm Keaton Gillogly alongside Ashley Washburn. We're going to turn our attention now to the Big Sky champion women's basketball team at Montana State. And Ashley, yes, they've got the championship, but this was quite the roller coaster weekend.
The 3 games in 5 days, as hard as it is, but I think the best way we can describe it is there were a lot of ups. There were a lot of downs. Obviously started with a down at Sac State, picked it up at Portland State, got a clinch of that Big Sky title, and all they needed was one more win to get it outright, but they couldn't do it against Eastern Washington last night, which was hard because it was senior night, but because of that, it dropped into that 2 seed in the Big Sky tournament, and now they're sharing that title with 2 other schools, Northern Arizona and Sac State.
Now, the bright spot is they still got the 2 seed because they could have ended up as a 3 seed. Even though Sac State is going to be a co-champ for the Big Sky regular season title this year, they still have to play the the 3 games in 3 days if they continue to win, again, as that 3 seed. But moving on from that, Darian White, what a tremendous performance on senior day, 27 points, and she just continues to climb up the chart.
Well, we talked about it on the men's side. You want to see your senior step up. We're seeing Jabril step up. Well, yesterday when things were getting a little hairy in that Eastern Washington, it was the senior Darian White that stepped up, nearly scored half of Montana State's points, 27, but because of that, it brought her up to that 1,700 point club, and now she's just 60 points shy, which is a number that she can absolutely get in the Big Sky Conference tournament of becoming Montana State's all-time scoring leader.
It'd be pretty cool if she could do that because she's had 2 shortened years due to COVID in her freshman and sophomore years, and it's not like she's just raining threes. I mean, her shots are difficult getting into the paint. It's much harder to do that with the 2-point shot than it is the 3-point shot.
Well, absolutely, and that's why you look, and she's now the free throw all-time leader for Montana State because she's getting inside. She's doing the dirty work to try to put Montana State in a good position, but she wasn't the only senior that was honored last night. There were 5 of them in total, 5 of them that have all had a huge impact. We'll talk with head coach coming up after this break.
Welcome back to Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
Welcome back to Bobcat Insider. I'm Ashley Washburn alongside Bobcat women's head basketball coach, and I think we should also add Big Sky champion to that title. Looking back to that Portland State game on Saturday, what was the moment like being able to celebrate knowing that you clinched a share of that title?
Well, you know, you have to just make things as fun as possible when you're in the moments. And, you know, it was just a really complete game start to finish. And we wanted to do something different. We knew we weren't going to be at home to cut down nets. And kids been spraying me a lot all year. And so the coaches got to get them wet. We still got drenched the most. But it was just really fun. Just, you know, enjoying the moments with the people that you're spending a lot of time with. You're working really hard. And for that group to be able to accomplish that, speaks volumes of just sticking together and finding ways and just finding a way to have a successful preseason.
And it was a big comeback win over Portland State. When you take a look back on this week, there were a lot of highs, a lot of lows, specifically, unfortunately, losing to both Sac State and Eastern Washington. Was there any common denominator between both of those losses?
Well, I think some defensive mistakes piled up. I thought trying to make some home run plays a little bit early. We talked about just there was a lot of emotion, particularly on the Saturday game, but I think there was a lot of thought process going into the Thursday game as well as where we were at in seeding, and really just got to get to the point where you just play focused, you trust the process, and I felt like that's what we were able to do against Portland State, and you know that's the characteristic of a Bobcat that we need to get back to. But more importantly, this conference is really tough, and so every game that you step onto the floor, you really got to be sharp on both ends, and you know that just showed us, you know, what we're capable of when we're turned on and we're really locked in, and what happens if we don't stay together. And so we're going to build from that experience. This team is resilient and definitely finds ways to bounce back.
Tough conference is right. There's 3 teams that all have a share of the Big Sky title between Sac State, Northern Arizona, and now Montana State. But even taking a look at last night's game, Eastern Washington just seemed to be firing on all cylinders as well. An unfortunate loss on senior night, but one of the really big moments that I thought of that game was after you gathered your team center court and just had a couple moments of, you know, talking to them. What was that conversation like after the game?
Well, just, you know, kind of reminding them of what they had accomplished. You know, I think that, you know, you've got to have your humility on victory and defeat. And you know, that was something that I just thought it was a little bit heartbreaking for your kids. It was senior night. You have your fans in the building. I think the expectations of things that could have been versus, you know, we just didn't get the job done. But I prepared them that you've earned a trophy and we're going to present you with that. And don't forget that these are hard. And, you know, typically when you get presented that trophy, it's after a win. So it just felt a little bit different for them. So just really needed to remind them of what they had accomplished during the regular season. And a lot of teams never get to say that or do that. And we actually took the trophy in the locker room and I had them look at it again with all the other trophies. And it takes an entire team and staff and a lot of times our fans for that to happen. So just wanted to remind them we were so proud of them.
Well, despite maybe ending the regular season on a sour note, like I said, there still were really high points of this week, and I immediately think of Darian White, who just really was doing everything that she could last night to try to get her team back within reach to hopefully retake that game, and in the process made a little history, rattled off 27 points, and officially entered herself into that 1,700 point club. If this really is her last year with Montana State, because she has one more year of eligibility, how do you sum up what she's done in the last 4 years with this program, if you can?
It's hard to sum up this young lady in her career, but I'll just say she's established a whole nother level of legacy. She's literally impacted the game in every facet at 5'6". And put her heart and soul into the Bobcats. She's elevated the program. She's a champion as far as how many rings that she's accomplished and feats that she's accomplished. But most importantly, she's done it with a smile on her face and been a great teammate. And the last week, you can see that she's really just she's playing at the level that a champion plays at. And I really believe that she's an MVP in this conference. There's a lot of really talented kids, and I hope she gets recognized for what she does. But yeah, she's just been a special kid beyond the court, and so I don't really have a great answer. I'm like, there's just a lot of things I could keep talking about the kid.
You've coached so many amazing women and talented women during your tenure here at Montana State, but when you take a look at the 5 that you honored last night, how special is that group as a whole? I know it's hard to say goodbye to those 5, but it's got to be special also taking a look at what they've done.
It is, when you look at that class, 4 of them came in together. And so, as a coach, that's the culture that we're about here in Bozeman too. And I know there's the transfer portal, there's a lot of things changing, the trajectory of college athletics. But one of the things we take a lot of pride in is, the start to finish in this family. And they're absolutely our family. The 4 of them that came in together are super close. They've done a ton in our community. Look at Cola Bad Bear with No More Stolen Sisters in our awareness games. But Kenzie Stumney having a career-ending injury, but yet staying connected with this program. It's a very special class, and those are the moments that it's really kind of hard to focus. And so you got to chalk some of that up to there are some nerves and really wanting to perform well for each other. But I was glad that they had the moment with the crowd that they had, because they've certainly earned it.
And the road isn't over for these seniors either, because the Madness of March is upon us. You guys get the 2 seed in the Big Sky tournament, headed to Boise later this week. What's the key over these next couple days to hopefully solidify another ticket to March Madness?
Well, really, you're at the time of the year where your focus better really tighten up of what you're thinking about, because really you got to survive in advance. Everybody uses that line, but it's absolutely true. And you have 40 minutes to prove it. And every opponent in the conference right now can win this Big Sky tournament. And we feel like we have the talent to do it, but we're going to have to execute. We're going to have to stay together. We're going to have to be really locked in, super disciplined. And we know Bozeman's going to go to Boise, so it's going to be loud for us.
You are not wrong about that. That game on Sunday is going to be at 2:30 Mountain Time. They'll play the winner of Idaho State versus Portland State. And that game you'll be able to watch right here on the CW. Coach, as always, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for joining us this season. I'm hoping that I'll get to cover this team very far into March.
That sounds great, Ashley. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll have more on Bobcat Insider after this.
Welcome back to Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
Welcome back to Bobcat Insider. Just a couple more minutes left. And hey, March Madness is officially here. Montana State men and women both locking in on that number 2 seed, which means they'll play on Sunday. They've got a little bit of time to get ready for that Sunday game. What's it looking like for the men? Who could they possibly play that day? So
they've got an opportunity to play either Portland State or UNC, Northern Colorado, and that's going to be an 8 o'clock tip-off. It'll be interesting to see how Montana State kind of moves forward here. They've been pretty healthy throughout the year, but they've got a couple of guys that are a little bit banged up and limping around a bit. So I think it's going to be really, really nice for them to get a couple of days off going into this tournament for that 8 o'clock tip. And now for the women, that 2:30 tip on Sunday. We'll see if they can kind of get things back on track.
They haven't really been playing their brand of basketball, where on the men, on the other hand, have won silently 10 of their last 11 games. Women obviously went 1-2 over this weekend, so they got a little bit of time to kind of regroup as a team. But when we've seen them play their best level of basketball, they look like a Big Sky champion. Obviously, they have a share of it this year, but you got to see what happens in this tournament, because anything can happen in March, and it's either going to happen against Portland State or Idaho State.
So it's going to be fun to watch. Can't wait. And if you're at home, you're going to have an opportunity to watch 14 games of this Big Sky tournament on the CW. The women will start on Sunday at 2:30, and the men will start on Sunday at 8 p.m. And last year was a special year with both teams making the NCAA tournament, and they both have a great opportunity to do it again this
this year.
Let's go dancing. Got to get those old dancing shoes out.
I can't wait. So that's what's coming up. It's going to be a great opportunity. Thank you for watching all year long. For Ashley Washburn, I'm Keaton Gillogly saying so long from Bobcat Insider for a final time this season.